Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
And you're all good to switch it to
Yeah. To switch over to StreamYard, I think so. I've left it open on my laptop. Will you be with me, or are you going up there?
What you need to do is switch. I'll be up there, I think. But you don't look confident. You just need to. So we're the ones managing the StreamYard screen and what actually goes up on the screen. So literally, all you need to do is go to StreamYard, make a full screen, and then a full screen button. And we drag it from the back.
That's cool. On this, and then I'll spin it round so I can see everybody. And then I can do. to the Meetup page. AWS, so there's a relaunch of AWS. Aaron is running that, I believe, on the 1st of November at Travel Perk. Right, so Ruby Tech, we're going to hear from them tonight, which I'm really excited about. I've worked really closely with them over the last few months. The stuff that they've achieved this year is amazing. Their events are brilliant. They have got a little fun Christmas social happening on the 3rd of December, which is a Sunday. I think it's at midday, so they do kind of like cookies, crafts, Christmas jumpers, that kind of thing. So it's just a bit of fun. Anglia Birmingham, 6th of December. And then we have the .NET Meetup, which is on the 13th of December. They have secured a new space, so it's actually the big JSS offices, which is literally just around the corner. Is everyone good to go? Okay. Right. Now that I have a captive audience and none of you can escape, I can talk to you about the mental health run that I have dragged a few people on with me to do. So, Mine Birmingham, they did like a little segment at Techniques if you were there, and they do some incredible work here in Birmingham. And we had Mike Jeffrey speak at Fusion. His talk was amazing. Some of the stats that he told us about that night were quite shocking, really sad. So we've always continued to do a lot of work with Mind going forward. So they have a Christmas mental health run. The elf dresser is optional, but I'd encourage it. Come on, stick your ears on, put some striped tights on and run around Canada Park. We have a little techniques group that are doing it. It's on the 3rd of December. If you would like to join the group, please let me know, get in touch with us and I'll add you to our group. We have actually got this is our donation page, and if you go on, we don't have any donations yet. That's really sad. So even if you could just chuck £1 our way, I think it's either going to snow or rain at the moment. The forecast are telling us on the 3rd of December, so it would be like a soggy mental health run. So please do support us, even if it's just just to come along, even if it's just to support us in any way, that would be amazing. Code of conduct, so the gist, as we all know, we mention it every time, please be kind and respectful to one another. This is a safe space that we have created at Fusion. We take it really seriously, and we want people to feel comfortable and happy here. If you feel that you're not happy, not comfortable, please get in touch with one of the Fusion teams. So that's myself and anyone? No, just a minute. So Aaron, James, Andy at the back of the room. So yeah, please bring anything to our attention that you're not happy with. Oh, okay. This is a jazzy slide put in by Mike Ellsmore. So now we're going to hear from our sponsor, Infobit. So I'm just going to bring Bit to the stage.
Hi everyone, and thank you all for coming. I promise I won't take too much of your time today. We're gonna go to talks very soon. So, who of you has heard of Infobit? Okay, Mike did do something this year. So, for all of you who haven't heard of us, we're a cloud communications platform that basically enables you as our client to contact your end user using different channels like SMS, RCS, WhatsApp, social media, inboxes, any chat apps that you might think of. You might have seen this QR code around, like on the doors and on the screens. That's the QR code is going to take you to our WhatsApp chatbot, one of the options we offer to our clients. Mike's the one who assembled it, so if it looks weird or something, blame him. But it will enable you to participate in our raffle tonight, and we're going to pull out the winners by the end of the evening. You can win some socks, a t-shirt, and the grand prize of the building blocks advent calendar. So it's going to be so much fun. Please participate, check out our chatbot, our tech, and I'm going to be here the whole evening if you want to talk to me. Thanks.
Okay, so on to talks. So our first speaker is Amber Shand. Now, she's remoting in, so you have to bear with us bear with me. I've been left in charge of this setup, and it should not have happened. Really, no, but really, it shouldn't have happened. So bear with, we're going to get Amber up. Now, just so you know, Amber will be taking, she's still going to take, clearly can't do two things at the same time. Can you multitask, Hannah? Absolutely not. So she's going to be taking a Q&A afterwards. So we're not quite sure. Hopefully live streamers, it will still work and we'll be able to take the Q&A. So please send your questions in on the chat. And you can also do that throughout the rest of the evening for all of our speakers. So I think it's... Amber, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yay! Welcome to Fusion. Should I tell you
Welcome to Fusion. I wish I was there in person. I actually just feel the energy.
Oh my God, this is the funniest thing I think I've ever done. Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to bow out and shut up, and I'm going to hand you over to Amber. Bear with.
Wait, I can't see you anymore. Don't leave me. You're back. I can't hear you though. Hannah, I can't. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear anyone.
Oh,
I can hear you now.
Oh, me, this.
I can hear you now.
Okay, this is why I shouldn't have had this job. Did I not say this? I'm sure I said this yesterday, and yeah, I'm still here. Oh gosh.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to get started. So, hello everyone, my name's Amber. This is a picture of me in 2018 when I was first learning how to code. So I was learning how to code with girls and I was doing their web development course. And fun fact, I was in my second year of university, I was studying economics and accounting. And so I was like, okay, let me give this coding thing a shot. And this is actually the demo day. And as you can see in my face, I am literally the most excited person there. Like, I'm so ready to demo my website. But little did I know, after that successful demo, I was like, with my finance brain, I was like, I'm just going to get a cheeky computer science kind of like internship. Maybe I'll be a software engineer, maybe a data analyst. I'm not sure. So I was applying for software engineering roles because I was convinced that I am now a web developer. Little did I know when I was applying that I needed to actually know JavaScript, React, and all the other fun stuff, when in reality, I only knew HTML and very basic CSS. The thing is, coming from a finance background, you're not expected to have all these accounts listed and have proof of all the accounts that you've balanced in the past. So it was a whole new learning curve, going from one, learning how to code, and two, learning how to master the technical interview. So I was like, okay, this is actually harder than I thought. So I did phase 2 and I did a web development course, the web application course at the time, which was Python. And that's when we're really digging deep now. I'm working with APIs and I'm like, okay, maybe this coding thing was harder than I initially thought. So I went back to university to finish my degree. And of course, the most amazing thing happens. It is 2020 and the pandemic just shuts down everything. And so it means that my second semester of exams have now cancelled. They're now online. It just feels like I'll get all these emails coming through because I was applying for loads of computer science graduate roles saying that your assessment center has been cancelled. We're not sure what's going on. There's a huge hiring freeze. And I just felt not as happy as I look in this picture. So what do I decide to do? I decide that, okay, I'm really going to take this coding thing seriously now. My degree is basically over. I decided to teach with Code First Girls and I landed my first role as a data analyst. And so that really wasn't the vibe. I was like, great, I'm now in tech, I'm doing some Python work with data analysis, but really I do actually want to be building stuff and I really want to be a web developer again. So I joined Sky's Get Into Tech, and essentially I think after like week 2, I actually ended up getting my first offer. And I was like almost as happy as I was in this picture. However, the problem was that now I had this intense fear that, oh, maybe if I had a different interviewer, I might not have gotten the job. Or maybe I just got lucky, the fact that they happened to ask me questions that I knew the answer to. And going through the process of going from a non-technical interviews to now technical interviews, it kind of reinforced that from the feedback that I was getting, that I just wasn't good enough. Kept saying things like, you don't have that much experience. Are you sure you want to move into a technical role? I remember one interview said, oh, are you sure you want to be a software engineer? And this is after I was talking about teaching other women how to code with Code First Girls. And he was like, oh, you sound like you'd be a great product manager. And I was like, no, like I'm really interested in coding. So I had this intense fear that I was actually just a fraud, right? And the reality was that was imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome refers to the notion that some individuals feel as if they've ended up in esteemed roles and positions, not due to their competencies. Like, as you could see, I was learning how to code. I was doing it with Sky Games Tech. I was teaching other women how to code. At the time, I actually was building a coding course with Coded Black Females and taught it. And yeah, and so it's not because of the competencies, it's because of some oversight or some stroke of luck. And another side was I was failing to internalize my own successes. But I'm not alone in this. And 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Can I get some hands up if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome? Cool, I'm in the right room. Not great, but like, we'll get into it. So, fun fact, imposter syndrome was originally known as the imposter phenomenon. And it was actually studied in 1978 by Dr. Pauline Clance. And they were studying in a clinical setting high-performing women, because at the time they figured that this was simply a woman's problem. And as we know now, that's just not the case. And in their research, they came up with 6 ways that imposter syndrome can show up, which is what we'll be talking about today. So this is really cool. This is the imposter cycle. And so it starts off with achievement related tasks, like maybe think back to university when you had an exam, or think back to your day job where you have like a PR or something that you're working on. And that triggers feelings of anxiety, self-doubt, and worry. And there's 2 ways people undergoing the imposter cycle respond. Either they over-prepare or they procrastinate. Hands up if you procrastinate. Me too. You're my people. Hands up if you over prepare. Yeah, maybe you should have like a support community with all 4 of you. Amazing. And then so with those people, the people that procrastinate, they're not doing really anything for a while, and then they tend to like over prepare in a short space of time. So say if you have an exam in 6 weeks, procrastinate for maybe 5 of those weeks, and that last week you're just like, oh my gosh, I need to do everything. So going in that last week, and people that over prepare in that 6 weeks, they'll be intensely studying throughout the whole period. And then when you get the result that you want, or when it's finished, the people that procrastinated say, oh, I got lucky because technically I don't really deserve this because I was actually procrastinating for 5 weeks. And in the 1 week, I had to go really, really hard. And the people that overprepared say, well, I had to put a lot of effort into that. And if I didn't put so much effort into that, I may not have gotten the result that I desired. And then that triggers the same feelings of just like that you're fraud, that it triggers that self-doubt and anxiety. And it happens in that kind of cycle. And then the need to be the very best. So some people with imposter syndrome secretly have the need to be the very best. So maybe think about if you're a high achiever in sixth form or college and you go to university now. And you know when these teachers used to say, yeah, you're smart here, but when you get to university, everyone's going to be just as smart as you. And you're like, nah, that's not true. And you go to university and it's like, oh my gosh, these people are so smart. It can feel quite intimidating, and you can feel like, who am I if I'm not the smartest in the room, or if I'm not one of the best? And so this is one of the symptoms that people with imposter syndrome may feel as well. And of course, the fear of failure. So this manifests in several different ways. And to be honest, the fear of failure could be a whole talk in itself. I'm definitely not saying that the cure to imposter syndrome is overcoming the fear of failure, because fear is a very natural emotion that we have. So I'm not here to say overcome it. Everyone feels fear to some degree. It's about how you're able to push through from that. But the fear of failure can manifest itself in sense of when we fail, it may feel like it's confirming that you're an imposter, because if you weren't an imposter, then you would have no sense of failure. And especially when it comes to tech and coming from non-technical background as well, adjusting to the fact that we fail all the time was very, very strange. Like, you're not going to go to an accounting firm and they say, you know what, the numbers are a bit off. You know, you pay this person $5,000 more. Who really cares? So adjusting to that was definitely really tricky. And then discounting praise. How many times have you seen someone and you think, oh, that person, I think they have imposter syndrome, so let me just tell them how great they are. And then you tell them, they're like, oh, you can see that they may feel a bit uncomfortable. You can see they're not really internalizing it. And they kind of, you can just see that they're just discounting all the praise that they get. And you may find yourself struggling to accept compliments as well. And the fear surrounding success. And this is a really interesting one, because when I was speaking to the people that I was teaching how to code through Code First Girls, they were actually worried about once they landed in the role that they wouldn't be good enough. So they were saying things like, I know that I'm studying this course right now, but what if I land the role and then I realize that I'm not good enough, or the people around me don't think I'm smart enough, or I'm not contributing the way that they need me to. So that's a huge fear around, like, once you actually get what you desire, whether you'll be able to meet the roles and responsibilities of that. And of course, what I see a lot in the tech industry, the superhuman/Superman aspects. And these are the people that may be like the first to enter the office and the last to leave. They normally are like pushing out like 5 PRs in a day. Like, sometimes you look at them and you think, how are you doing it all? But they actually feel like they have to do these things, because if they don't overwork and if they don't go above and beyond, then they'll be perceived as a fraud. And it's almost like a cover-up thing. So if I am doing like 5 PRs, no one's going to realize that I'm really a fraud. And these people, obviously, as you can imagine, tend to burn out a lot. And you can sometimes, it's hard to even recognize this type, because you think that they know from the fact they're doing things all the time that they're not an imposter, but the reality is a coping mechanism attached to feeling like an imposter. And before I get into perfectionism, I do want to have a caveat that there's a difference between a healthy pursuit for excellence versus an unhealthy pursuit for perfection. Because I used to think perfection was a good thing until I heard this quote from Brene Brown that I was just like, okay, maybe not. So Brene Brown says that perfectionists secretly have these thoughts, and they feel like if they look perfect and live perfectly and do everything perfectly, that they can avoid or minimize painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. And I didn't realize that these were my underlying thoughts, but I felt so seen when I watched this clip, because I felt like when you go to a job interview and they say, what's your weakness? And I'd be like, oh, like, I'm a perfectionist, like, I've got such high standards. But like, again, there's just such a difference between like having high standards and excessively high standards that are unrealistic, that make you feel worse about yourself because you're not able to meet them. And so that is actually summarized perfectly in this meme. So it says, the worst crime imaginable and every mistake I made. Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. My brain says that they're the same picture. So behind the perfectionism can have, and for me personally as well, you can have like high functioning anxiety, a lack of breaks, because especially if you're the overworking type, you feel like you may not deserve a break. And especially if you're also procrastinating, the thing that that can be a bit misconstrued, that procrastinators are having a good time, 9 times out of 10 we're not. Like, we may not be doing anything, but it doesn't mean that we're relaxed. 9 times out of 10 we're stressed while we're procrastinating. So we feel like if I'm already not really doing anything, how can I take a break and actually relax. And people often get burnt out, and it has a tendency to forget accomplishments as well. So before I go on into several tips and solutions for imposter syndrome, I do want to caveat by saying that there are some reasons why women may feel imposter syndrome at higher degrees compared to men, and especially in the context of working in a male-dominated industry. That article is very powerful. And one of the great quotes that I've seen from the article is imposter syndrome directs our view towards fixing women at work instead of fixing the places where women work. I don't have enough time to get into this, unfortunately, but do read the article and just like we can talk about it another time. And I wish I was there in person, but another time. So I want to start off by saying having a psychologically safe environment makes all the difference, because it actually leads to being able to fail early, fail often, and fail forward. So with a psychologically safe environment, it actually means that if you fail, you mess up. So for example, who's broken production before? Put your hands up. Oh, not a lot of people. I think I am in the wrong room. So it's so normal for us to break things, and also for us to have error messages when it comes to coding. And so to enable to embrace that and actually be able to contribute, we need to have environments that basically just help in terms of failing. So I'll give you an example. So I remember I was in my first software engineering role. I was a junior dev, and I was like quite panicked. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't push this up, because if I push this up, it'll break. And I remember my senior engineer said, Amber, literally everyone in this team has broken something at some point, and it's just part of the process. And he reiterated that we are a team. So if something broke, you're not expected just to be able to fix it on your own, especially as a junior developer. He said that we're all here to help you. So whenever you need anything, just make sure you reach out to us. And that made such a big difference. It made me feel extremely reassured, and that, okay, if anything did happen, then they would have my back. And so, yeah, so it's actually Will Smith that said this phrase. This was before the days that he was known for giving Chris Rock a slap. But he actually said that successful people fail a lot, and they extract the learning lessons from failure to get to the next phase of success. And so he reframes failure as ways to develop and grow and recognize the areas that you need to evolve. And then the power of community, like even in the room that you're in, it's so amazing to feel part of something and to lean into that. So say if you have an environment in your workplace that you just don't really feel that safe, you can't really ask questions. These kind of communities where everyone's a techie and they will have similar interests to you is just so powerful. And then taking intentional breaks. We covered this a bit before about when we feel like we don't deserve a break, but taking intentional breaks makes such a big difference. You see it all the time, maybe on social media. Well, it's actually, social media has two sides, which is really funny in the tech industry. One part of social media is like, how I do like 10 PRs in a day, chat GPT your way to like mastering like all these things. But at the same time, like there can be like the well-being side, and like you don't solve a bug just by staring at a screen all day. Sometimes people are able to solve their bugs when on a walk and when they're in their most relaxed state, which is so cool. The only problem is when like it disrupts your sleep. Like I remember I was sleeping and I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got the answer. I know how to solve the bug. Just literally just turn over, grab my laptop and like coding away. I was like, this is it. And it was funny because it actually didn't work. And so, but it just shows that like in the most random times, like when we're actually resting, we may be able to come up with a solution. Doesn't mean that it works all the time though. So one way to incorporate like some intentional well-being within your team is have like walking meetings. I do this with my manager. Like sometimes we'll just we'll walk for our one-to-ones. In the team as well, we have meeting breaks. So between 12 and 2, we call it chill time. And that's when meetings aren't really put in for the whole of the team. And team social time. Like, I love team social time. Sometimes we play stuff like Code Walls or Scribble, and it's all just a very good time. And I made a track your wins template. It's free. It's on Notion. You can scan the QR code if you're interested. And this is all about not discounting small wins. So your win could be the fact that you went outside for a walk today. It could be that you saved like £50 today, or And it's great to have a visual aid. So what I have is I've actually got it on my phone. Fun fact, I actually don't use this template, and I said that maybe I should. It's mostly because like people kept saying, "Do you have a template?" And I said, "Okay, I'll make one." But my personal thing that I go to is just my phone. I've got, you can create folders in photos, and I just go back to that whenever I just feel like an absolute fraud. And back in the day in 2020, I used to have a diary where I used to just record like all of the wins. It was like even things like I reached out to this person to ask for help because there was a time where I just felt like I couldn't ask for help because I just found it very hard. And you can set it up to have it monthly. So I would say like August 2020 or like November 2023, like these are my wins, or weekly, and that you can check in on. And then find a sustainable rate of working, and this requires experimentation. Because we're human, we have to account for our high and low energy days. But in the case of our overworkers, the Supermans or Superwoman, we need to find a sustainable rate of working, because when we operate at like 150%, you can only operate at that time for so long before you get burnt out. And then if all of a sudden you go from 150% to maybe like 60% or 70%. And that can be really hard for you to grapple with because you're so used to operating at 150%, but that can only last for so long. And also sometimes it's a case of when you're operating at 150% and you go back to like maybe 100 to what other people are on, you may actually, because you've set such a high bar, it can actually be seen as underperforming. But I would definitely recommend to experiment with your sustainable rate of working because it's different for everyone. And then developing a growth mindset. I know I'm actually quite whizzing through these things, but I don't have that much time. But a growth mindset is the belief that you can develop your skills and talents through hard work, the right strategies, and guidance from others. And this is so powerful because we're learning new things every day. So one thing I really love is a podcast called Squiggly Careers, and they speak about the shift of going from being a know-it-all to now being a learn-it-all. The reality is, like, things are changing at such a rapid pace. We need to really lean in on developing a learning mindset. And that's why a growth mindset is so powerful, because I can do, like, for example, I was going from one repo to another. One of them was working with Java, the other one I was working with Python. And I was like, oh, I haven't worked with Python for so long. And it's just adopting the power of Yat. So it's like, oh, I may not feel confident with Python, or may not be good at it, but it's just like, I have time, and it's like, I'm not good at it yet, or I'm struggling with it. But it's just like, eventually it'll get to a point where I'm practicing and time have gone by for me to actually feel better in terms of implementing new features, for example. And to end, I just want to say, embrace the learning experience, celebrate your wins, and know what you bring to the industry. So thank you.
Am I on? I'm back. Hi. Okay, we're going to run. Should I leave you like this? You want to stay like that, looking at the room? Oh, Amber can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh.
So I didn't know if you were talking to me.
We should do this more often, do you think? This, like, you don't like it? So what we're going to do, we're going to run a Q&A, and Aaron or James, let me know if you've got any questions from the live stream as well. So has anyone got any questions for Amber? Anyone fancy making me run around the room? Oh, okay, here we go, Jess. Amber, you can hear me on this mic, yeah?
Yep.
Cool, I'll just give the mic to Jess. Oh, thank you so much. That was so well researched and so personalized. Really fantastic. I was really excited to hear you talk about working in a sustainable pattern. Do you have any advice for folks, and this is not me, well, because I'm about to say something. This is very heavy. But folks who've been like really giving it their all, like ready to burn out, how they can, like, tactics through which they can come down to a sustainable pace without looking like they're suddenly slacking.
Yeah.
Any advice, any strategies?
So sometimes people just have to learn the hard way, sadly. So it's a case that people will feel like, oh, I can. The thing is, when you're working at 150%, And the thing is with coding, some people love it so much that it's hard to set those kind of boundaries because they're actually having fun. And so when the burnout hits them, it can be a shock because how can I be burnt out by something that I'm really enjoying? Um, and so it can take for them to reflect on, oh, okay, maybe I have been going a bit too hard. Maybe I do need to set boundaries, even though I'm enjoying it so much. But even if it comes from a negative place where I feel like I need to prove myself. I don't think that a lot of people will um, ramp down unless something negative happens, unfortunately. But I think that I don't have any solid tips and tricks. I think it's very personal to the person themselves because I can't say that, oh, just do one PR instead of two because people's circumstances are very different. People's responsibilities are very different. But I would just say that they check in on themselves. They get some feedback from their manager as well. Because sometimes people are overworking. And with the high performers, we kind of assume that they're doing good, they know that they're good doing a good job. So we stop complimenting them. But the reality is, a lot of people with imposter syndrome, they need that external validation. And so when we see someone that's high performing, we're like, oh, that's just boring telling you how great you are. Sometimes that can cause them to go even harder because they're like, why am I not just receiving compliments anymore? So it's a very, very challenging thing just to diagnose in like 2 minutes or like give strategies to because it's so personal for everyone. But I would just say check in with your manager in terms of high performing, check in with yourself and just realize that like whether you're whether you're whether you're able to sustain this rate of working, and then when you ramp it down towards like what other people may be doing in your team, how do you feel? And check in with your manager if like they're still happy with your performance, essentially.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber. Jess, is that answer the question? Yeah, Jess is happy. Okay, anyone else got any questions for Amber? Okay, Matt?
Thank you. Great talk, Barbara.
Thank you.
If you're a manager and somebody in your team is suffering from imposter syndrome, they don't realise it, you might have. How do you help them?
Definitely do not be like, I think you have imposter syndrome. I think that's probably one of the worst things that you can say, because sometimes it makes someone, because it can be quite personal for people. Because remember, like I'm actually more than happy to talk about my deepest, darkest insecurities to my tech people. But like a lot of people, like in a workplace setting, may not feel comfortable speaking about it because at the end of the day, it can bring up a lot of anxiety and it can like trigger them in terms of feeling that seen as well. I think that what I would do is I think that okay, I've actually got a really good example of something that helps with people with imposter syndrome because sometimes it's a case of they like facts, especially in tech, right? So if you say we think you're doing a great job, that's one kind of feedback. But it's not feedback to say you've implemented this feature, it's gotten this results, and we're happy with your performance. Sometimes it's helpful for you to be explicit in what they're great at in particular. That can make a huge difference in terms of feedback culture, and actually having a feedback culture is really helpful as well. So in the company that I work for, we actually have like it's a weekly feedback that we need to give to everyone just to say like how they're doing. If we've worked with them, we pull it through the platform Workday to say that it was great to pair with you on this. I've learned X, Y, and Z, or you taught me this, or it was great. Like my senior engineer said to me, like how like he just list. I wish I had the screenshot available. I had it in my previous slides, but I got rid of it for some reason. But it was like so explicit of all the work that I'd done, and I just felt like, what did I really do? I deleted the column, and it's like you were tombstoning, and you're doing all these things, and I was like, okay, like that's how we're seeing it. So definitely having a feedback culture and being explicit in terms of what they're talented in, and that's the best advice I can really give, and help them like yeah, that's the best advice I can give.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay, any more questions for Amber?
It's so amusing watching you run around.
Yeah, so first of all, great talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you said that your company, your bosses gave you chill time for 2 hours where you didn't get meetings booked. And, that's nice of them, but also some of that is your legally mandated break. And a lot of what you talked about is how you can recognise your own imposter syndrome, your own search for perfection. But how much is there in the way of resources, whether in your company, your union, your community, who can help you understand, are you doing too much? Is this the right thing you should do? What are you legally entitled to that you're being made to avoid? Well, I'm interested in resources people could have access to.
Okay, that's a really good one. I'm actually building up a list of resources at the moment. One thing that my company has is Headspace, which is really helpful in terms of like actually just meditating and help. But that doesn't work for everyone. And I think that one thing I like to empower people is to have their own intervention toolkit for themselves. So, for example, I know if I'm overthinking, I need to step outside, because when my problems feel like they can fill up the whole room, it helps me to go outside and realize that my problems aren't that all consuming. The power of community is like sometimes I'll go to like community events like, Amber, I don't know how you're doing everything. And I say, I don't know either. I don't know either. And so it's about having a community outside of work that can check in on you to see how you're doing. And also, like, what's really powerful is having mentors and sponsors. I love to talk about the difference between mentors versus sponsors. So mentors help to upskill you in a certain area. Maybe it's like, oh, like even at companies, like I'm new to Skyscanner, I've joined there 6 months ago, and it was great to have some people reach out to me and say, oh, hey, I seen you just joined. I'm always down for a coffee chat. In the coffee chat, they're just like, help me to understand how, like, it's one thing what is said on the rule books, like online, but it's another thing, like people in the company know, like to reach out to this person if you need help for CSS, this person if you need help with Java, reach out to this team if you ever have issues with this and stuff like that. And that makes a huge difference, because sometimes you feel like you need to take all the burden onto yourself, and it can feel overwhelming not knowing who to reach out to and ask for help, especially in the sense when you're overworking yourself. And knowing when to delegate, I think that having a good manager makes the ultimate difference. And especially if you feel comfortable enough with them to communicate that, okay, I think I've actually been working, I think I've been going a bit too above and beyond, and I'm not sure if I'm able to sustain it. But I've always been really fortunate enough to have those managers that set it for me. They say like, Amber, you're being quite hard on yourself. Because I would just like play down, like, how I said before about not discussing praise. They were like, Amber, like you keep saying this, but this is something that is very valued. And it took me having to be open with I don't know, like with myself in terms of, okay, like maybe I'm being too hard on myself, and maybe I don't need to be doing all these extra things all the time. But I think that you get that from other people. But I definitely will create some kind of resource and some things that people can look at if they're dealing with stuff like this. So it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you. Is there any more questions? I'm going to stay at the back just in case I've got to do. I'm going to make my way that way anyway. But is there anyone on the way that would like to ask a question? No? Anyone on the live stream? Live streamers? Can they hear it? No? Oh, yeah. Oh, they can. That's good news. Okay, lovely. Right, let's do a big round of applause for Amber.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye, Amber.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was good. Yeah. That was so good. Everyone can you can just all see yourselves now. Brill. Okay. So I don't think I'm not in charge of tech. Yes, which is brilliant. They'll be really happy and pleased. I'm just going to shut that. Just We are going to have a break after James's talk, just to let everyone know, just a quick 5-minute one. You on? You on? Oh, hold on, let me just double check.
Game on?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. I'm definitely the one who over prepares out of those two, by the way. Absolutely can relate to that 110%. Right, here we go, folks. The most hostile network in the world. Pause for dramatic effect. You'll be glad to know that's the last of my attempts for drama for the rest of this evening. This is a tagline that's been given to the Black Hat Conference, not something that I've made up, so not my fault, sorry Gov. If we were going to talk about the most hostile networks in the world, it would make sense to try and quantify them. If you could quantify them, you'd probably want to put them in a graph, and maybe it would look something like this. Maybe you would consider that there's lots of nation states who are quite malicious and going about wars and stuff like that at the moment, so we'd probably put them there, but it turns out even they pale into insignificance when you consider, feedback from the microphone, when you consider the open Wi-Fi networks at Molyneux and Villa Park, because honestly, there will let anyone in, the people you get there. Yeah, okay. End of football jokes. So I work in security. I have done for almost 20 years, and I've been to so many security talks. And anyone in the room, I presume you all identify as working in and around IT. Hands up. I'm guessing that's everyone. How about security? Anyone from security? One. Yes. Thank you. You, like me, have probably heard enough about zero trust. In fact, everyone's heard enough about zero trust, so there's going to be no zero trust today. There will be zero trust. From this point onwards, obviously, I don't know if, does that count? Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I think that cancels out to just trust, doesn't it? But I don't know, double negative. There's also going to be no large language models, ChatGPT or anything like that, because I've also heard enough about that. There will be no condescending security advice, like just turn on MFA, it will solve all your problems, honestly. There will be no patch all your things, because that's totally unfeasible and doesn't work either. We're also not going to blame the users, because it's not their fault either. We've put them in the bad situation. And because 50, 60% of the time I see a meme in someone's presentation, I'm so old now, I don't get them. I don't know what they are. I used to know all the memes, so we're not going to have any memes either. So round of applause for the context for today's talk. How to burn 2 minutes of your talk without actually saying anything. So my name's James, also known as Jimmy, Jamie, depends how long ago you met me. And as you can see from all this stuff up here, local person, Baggies fan, Bears fan, worked at a few different places. I'm now at Palo Alto Networks, where, as Han said, I've been doing DevRel recently. I was maintaining, until very recently, our Ansible collection of modules for the firewalls, which was fun. I'm now in a technology innovation team as well, so I get to do fun stuff like go to the Black Hat conferences. Now, if you haven't heard of them, got this lovely mysterious logo. There's one in London, one in Singapore, one in America every year. 3,000 or 4,000 at the London and Singapore events, 25,000 at the USA ones, so a bit of a bigger affair. And the USA one runs back to back with DEF CON, which is another fairly infamous security conference, certainly in the world of InfoSec anyway. Now, the thing with these conferences is they are very much focused on the offensive side of security. So that's not offensive as in my first football joke, offensive as in attacking, offensive as in pen testing, red teaming, looking for exploits, looking for vulnerabilities, creating malware or reverse engineering malware, all these kind of activities. So you can imagine that if there was a network around a conference with people doing all these things, it might be an interesting network to be on, right? And I know there's people in this audience who work on hosting events. We're at an event right now, Hannah knows, and everyone else involved in Fusion knows how hard it is. And there's a big shopping list, and that's probably not an exhaustive list of stuff you have to do to get events off the ground and conferences and things like that. I want to focus on the one at the bottom, training courses. The training courses available at the next Black Hat look like this. So I'll give myself an awkward pause here to let you scan some of them, but some of my favorites, we've got Honing Kubernetes right at the top, hacking enterprises straight up. That's covering all bases by the sounds of it. We've got, oh yeah, my favorite near the bottom, Android userland fuzzing and exploitation. I don't even really know what that means, to be honest. And I've been in security for 20 years almost. So it's a fun place to be. People are coming and doing these kind of things on purpose. Now, because people are doing these kind of pseudo-malicious things on purpose, it's hard for the black hat organisers to really sign up to the T's and C's of using the venue's infrastructure, using their internet connection. The venues are like, no, I don't want that anywhere near me. Take it away. So they have to go DIY. And by DIY, we mean, apart from a separate internet pipe that comes into the building, everything else is rolled custom, bespoke almost, for each conference. So we're talking routers, switches, firewalls, wireless access points, and all the cables and glue and hope and prayers in between. So not only is that a challenge, because you're creating that from scratch, but you also have to do it very fast. The organisers tend to get, and we've got the London conference actually the first week of December, so sorry I can't do the Elf run, but we tend to get residents of the venue 2 days before the network needs to be live. So this is typically a day and a half to create an enterprise network for a load of very, very security-minded people to come and play. So it's a bit of a tall order. So it takes a lot of people. This here, we're all slightly wider than we were maybe. It's coming up to Christmas, we're all eating too much. So this is the team from London last year. The vast majority of those people will be there again first week in December. Next month it is. What do I do in all of this? I lead a team from Palo. We take our network security platforms, that's mostly our firewalls, but a few other associated bits and bobs. We also take a security operations platform, which goes by the name of Cortex, and that does a bunch of automation for us as well. But we also obviously work with all these other people. It's a big group effort to get all this off the ground and working. This is one of the 2 rooms we have. This one actually has daylight, which is nice. The other one doesn't. So this is where we will reside once we've built the core of the network. This is about halfway through day 1. So a lot of the cardboard boxes have gone, but the flight cases are still open, and there's people. All those things at the back are wireless access points on stands that are waiting to go out into the venue and serve the internet, serve all the lovely people with their infrastructure to go hacking in. And primarily, this is a NOC. It's a network operations center. If anyone's ever worked in one of those, you know the number 1 goal, keep the lights on, right? Keep the network up, keep it performant, keep it stable, keep it available, all those lovely words. And so that is our primary goal. People, whether it's sponsors, whether it's vendors with booths in the big sales hall, whether it's the people who've paid a lot of money for the training courses, they all deserve a network that performs and is available and up and stable. Fair game. The secondary job then is the SOC, Security Operations Center. It's not physically a different place, it's just people carve themselves up different roles and we work in different ways. Now these people, the tools at their disposal are great. Every piece of infrastructure that we lay out for this conference sends all of its logs back to a centralized place. And then we have full packet capture as well. And when I say full packet capture, it's everything north-south, i.e. in and out of the internet, but also everything east-west. So everything across every subnet and every VLAN. So we see everything, and I mean everything. We'll come back to some stories later. Now, the guys and girls of the Black Hat organizing team used to roll this themselves back in the day, probably a decade ago now. They'd go off to the equivalent of Curry's or Dixon's back in the day, Best Buy in the States, whatever it is, and get Netgears and Linksys and all that jazz. But it got to a point where it didn't scale anymore. They were having issues with stability. They weren't actually able to segment the network properly. One of the byproducts of that was 1 year when a particular training class decided to go and use their newfound skills to go and attack one of the other training classes. That didn't go down too well either. So they've invited they basically got to go shopping out in the market and invite the vendors they believe were the best at each security capability and ask them to come and help, which pretty much every vendor went, yes, we'd love to get involved in that. That sounds like great fun. So that's exactly what has happened. So this is us. Now, warning, I do love a bit of time-lapse photography. I've got hours of the stuff from each event. I'm not going to put too much of it out of there for you, but this is where we start. So this is the other room, no daylight. It's got some tables, and you can start to see some network equipment going in and a few cables dangling around everywhere. This is our comms room. No racks, No UPSs, no nothing. It's just some tables and stuff. And this is what happens when you have to build something in a day and a bit. Notes to anyone else who likes doing time-lapse photography, and I know that is like, it's like potato quality, apologies for that. The GIFs haven't scaled up very well. But I think everyone has got a friend called Dave, or someone in their team called Dave, who's that person who always does that thing, right? This is our friend Dave in the orange t-shirt. So there I have, I've set my video up. What does he do? Stacks 3 boxes and a server in front of me. And it's definitely not a fire hazard, right? Server on top of 3 cardboard boxes, and I think there's a bottle of Coke any second now that goes on top of the server. There we go. Definitely no health and safety problems here whatsoever. Don't worry, shortly after this lapse, it did obviously move over to the much safer table over on the corner. Yes, there we go. This is what we'd like it to be, right? And this is probably what most of the attendees like to think it would look like, but we don't show them that room, so that's fine. This is what it looks like when it's finished. We've got some NUCs, we've got some servers, they've got all the PCAPs on them, distribution switches, core switches. The orange thing is a network tap. These are our lovely Palo firewalls. That pink cable there, that's the internet. Don't touch that one. Seriously, do not touch that one. It has been touched before, and that person hasn't been invited again. It's lovely. I mean, it works. It's a very high-performance network. Although it doesn't look like it, it actually does a really good job. Now, as the firewall admin in all of this, I get to do lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of configuration because it's such a highly segmented network. Highly segmented basically means everything has its own subnet. So that's every training course, and you saw there's a big long list of them. So straight away, that's quite a few. We've got our own management network for the NOC and the SOC. There's a sales office that has its own network. The vendors out in the expo hall with their booths, they have different networks. We have a briefings area, there's a press area, you get the idea, there's oodles of the things. So, for me, I can't go around doing all that by hand. We get all the data, so all the lists of the subnets, the VLAN tags, and all the other goodness that we need to segment the network as structured data, which is fine, but I still don't want to be Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V, Control, you get the idea. I'm bound to make a mistake, and it's going to take ages, and it's just not worthwhile use of time. So whilst it's not the fastest automation tool in the world, it's the one that makes it easiest for me to just loop around that data, and every time I pick up a subnet, pump in basically a new interface on the firewall. So that list would carry on going probably twice the height of this screen, but that's me configuring all the subnet interfaces on the firewall so that if you're in any subnet, you have to hit the firewall. It's your default gateway, so we see everything. We also put a zone we attach a zone to each interface. Zone-based firewalls just makes it easier to build a rule base. You know, firewalls work kind of, you are allowed in, you are not, you are. The rule base is much shorter if it's zone-based versus one that's much longer, and then the longer it gets, the harder it gets to manage and understand should something be allowed or not, and have I made a mistake by putting a rule in the wrong place, in the wrong order, and all that jazz. The firewall also acts as the DHCP server on pretty much every subnet, except some which are statically assigned. So I have to create DHCP servers as well. And on one particular subnet, I have to give 130 access points DHCP reservations based on the MAC address of each access point, which is fun. Also not going to do that by hand. So that's Ansible looping over all of that and doing a great job. And this is what, in my day job, I guess, I'm talking to real enterprise customers. This is the value of automation, right? It's not spending time doing the boring stuff. It's not having humans Control-C and Control-V and making mistakes and stuff like that. It's just get stuff done. So once we've built everything, we retire back to the nice room with the daylight. And as you can see, there's various things going on here. We've all got tables, we all sit there. From my point of view as the firewall admin and working more in a NOC capacity, I just want to have a quiet week. If I have a quiet week, nothing's broken, nothing went down, no one trod on a cable, that room didn't overheat, because it's not really a data hall or a comms room. But then it kind of hands over from the day that the conference starts for real into SOC mode. So then we start threat hunting. So we're looking at all those alerts and logs that came in from the infrastructure. We're looking at the packet captures. We're looking at the traffic on the wire. We're looking at what everyone is doing and looking out for stuff that we might have to respond to. Because we know to expect a certain amount of malicious activity from the training classes and the people demonstrating new and novel attack techniques in their presentations, but we need to know when to look for the stuff that we should respond to because people are potentially getting us or them into trouble. So the second part of what Palo sends to the equation is the firewalls was the first part. Cortex XOR, bit of a mouthful, but it is a SOC automation platform. Does a lot of automation and orchestration work, and you can make nice little playbooks like this, sort of bit drag and drop Groovy style, right? And you can see here. My laser point is rubbish. One of the things we've done here in this playbook is to help the incident, the person who's attending the incident, by finding out a whole bunch of stuff for them. So this playbook would run before they even start working on the incident. So straight away, we look at the zone. Do you remember I was talking about zones, and each interface and each training class has its own subnet? Well, straight away, if we know that this alert or this incident or someone who's triggered an IPS signature or done something silly, if it's from a training room, we're straight away on a lower severity type of incident, because we kind of expect that stuff. It's not, we can't leave it alone, but it's a lower severity than if it had come in from the internet, someone trying to attack us from outside. Also, you've got this kind of loop where we're looking for similar incidents. So if we can group together repeat offenders, then that helps us. Repeat offenders again from the outside in are looking persistent, and we might just want to get some IP blocks out there and just drop them off altogether. But on the other hand, if we see 20 different people all do a similar incident from the same training class, well, that's clearly obvious. They're all learnt the same thing and they're trying the same thing. So again, that would lead us to a lower severity incident that we don't have to think about too much. So that's kind of the world and the mentality of SOC, really. As per, well, pretty much everything in the world now has to integrate with Slack, right? And everyone uses Slack for everything, I believe. That's what I've heard. So we do use Slack as well, and this is great because it's a vendor-neutral platform. So you've got Palo, Cisco, and all the other vendors I listed earlier communicating and sharing links, sharing screenshots, sharing data about the threats they've seen. So this is the fundamental communication platform for the week. And what XOR is able to do is build into that with a Slack integration. So for instance, everyone's looking at a particular incident. What we can do here with the Slack integration is say, hey, I've seen on this packet capture a particular MAC address is doing X. I don't want to know what that machine is or roughly what it's doing. So you can see the playbook runs, and right at the bottom here, you can see the answer. So we're telling the analyst the IP address. We're telling them which zone it's in. You can see it's from a training room. You probably can't actually, but it says TR_digital forensics. So that's a training class that year. It also says if the machine's online, what VLAN it's in, and which access point it's connected to, which helps us then physically understand where this person is. Another example on the left there, on the right, sorry for you, is we've seen someone communicate to a suspicious-looking domain. It's lots of letters, random letters and numbers, probably a domain-generated algorithm that's created that kind of domain. Probably suspicious, but yeah, the net result at the bottom is that via two or three different sources of threat intelligence, we've worked out that yes, this is a suspicious domain. So when you're thinking it's suspicious, we can confirm it is. And you know what it's like. We can give people this interface. They don't have to leave Slack and go to a different context. Then everyone can see the result and you can share the results. So it's nicer than, and then we don't have to onboard all the other people onto this platform either. You know, we just have to give users this interface through Slack. So that's nice and easy. All right, so that's the build and the operation. So I'll give you, the second part of this is to give you some stats and stories of what we've seen over the last couple of events. And we'll start with some good old-fashioned network traffic stats. I can see your eyes light up with absolute delight, just like mine. Just me then, yeah. So it's a 4-day event in May. This is the one in Singapore. So you can see very clearly the 4 spikes from each day as it ramps up and goes down. It's interesting from this particular graph that there's actually a drop-off at lunchtime. The first 2 days are just training courses. So people do actually stop at lunchtime and actually do something else. Whereas on the other days, you've got all the expo hall, all the briefings, all the press activity. So there isn't really much of a drop-off. Other things to note, the middle row is just some subnets I told you there's loads of subnets. Just some ones that we're interested in particular that we keep. So this is always on the screen in the NOC. We always look out for this. And then firewall 3 and firewall 2, they're a pair of firewalls, active, passive. So one backs up the other in case of a problem. So the fact that firewall 3 didn't actually transfer any data all week is fantastic. It means nothing went wrong and I did my job correctly. Happy days. Turns out our firewalls now are pretty good just by being passive and looking on the wire. And this is without that kind of packet capture server that we had. This is just a firewall being on the network. It can assert by looking at MAC addresses, by looking at the structure of ARP queries, by looking at the structure of DHCP requests and all other bits of fingerprinting, what kind of a device it is on the subnet. So roughly 3,000 attendees, 2,100 devices on the network shows you at least 800 or 900 people had the sense to think maybe I shouldn't connect to this network unless I really need to. The training course didn't have much choice, I guess, but everyone else had a choice. So 145 IoT devices, mostly our own network stuff, a few bits of consumer IoT, as you can see. Don't know how well that's rendered for you at the back, but it shows you, this shows you a kind of view of products and vendors. No surprise to see Apple devices, Macs taking the lion's share, lots of Windows, lots of Android. I love this here, there's a Valve Steam Deck. I'd like to think that was someone's lunchtime, but again, pay for a training course, doing a bit of gaming. Yeah. And there's a Raspberry Pi down here in the bottom right. There's always a Raspberry Pi in every single network now. Literally every single network. It's fair enough. This rather interestingly shaped graph shows us, this is all about the DNS requests that we observe going through the firewall to our DNS servers on site. And also out to the internet in case anyone chooses to modify the DNS that we offer on DHCP. So again, you can see there's a different profile for the first 2 days to the second pair of days, the third and fourth days. In particular, on the third day, we had a massive spike of command and control. We had a whole bunch of machines turn up that were just blasting resolutions for command and control servers. They didn't really do much after that. We couldn't really get to the bottom of it. And it was a bunch of machines that we couldn't really get to talk to the users of, but really, really strange. But again, and the amount of proxy use. This was in Singapore, and we were told reliably that proxy use is rife there to get through various national borders of internet control, let's call it. Not so bad as China's Great Wall, but yeah, that kind of idea. I will finish off with some stories collated over the last few events. Some of these I was personally involved in, some of them I was there but overlooking. And it may or may not surprise you to learn that we still have a huge amount of plain text traffic, by which I mean think HTTP instead of HTTPS. So not encrypted, not TLS, not IPsec or anything else like that. A huge amount. I thought, you know, every time we go to one of these events, I think, well, surely almost all the web's now encrypted, but there's so much other stuff going on. The first and possibly most obvious thing to note about this is if you are like us with full packet capture, if you're using plain text services, we can see your password. It doesn't matter if it's unique and complex and you're using a password manager and all those other good practices. And think with all of these, when I say we can see it, if someone else was on the network as a man in the middle, or they got into a packet sniffing situation over Wi-Fi or even the wired network, they can see it as well. So this isn't just about us being all smarmy in the knock and sock. So there was someone who was using a flight reservation service in the clear. We could quite easily have modified this person's flight reservation or just cancelled it for fun and giggles. Wouldn't have been much fun for them. These are the sorts of things that go through our minds when we see it. We've never done any of these. I absolutely promise. It's just the thought process because we're all offensive security type people. But someone malicious could do this and they might do it for real. Home IoT, it's a gold mine, right? Yes, everyone's concerned about privacy with, you know, Alexa and Google and all that kind of stuff. But then if you roll your own or you just buy random stuff, like they're almost as bad from a security point of view. We've seen so many camera streams. But there was also Tiddles, who has an IoT cat feeding thing that's connected to the internet. And, you know, we could have easily gone and really overfed Tiddles that day. He could have had an absolute ball, right? He almost had the entire container dumped into his bowl in one go because we thought it would be funny. But obviously we didn't because we are respectable people. There's something called BigFix, which is a bit like Jamf or Microsoft SCCM. It's like a management tool for your laptops and things like that. At least that's how I understand it. But what we do know about this is think about a pen tester or a red teamer, what they would want to do if they were going to take over your machine. They'd want to know things like your OS, your versions, the apps you're running, services you're running, ports that are open. This thing, running in plain text mode, just spews it out. It's like, I don't even need to do any reconnaissance on your machine at all. I can go straight into exploitation because I know you've got application A, B, C running version X, and I know it's vulnerable to Y, and straight away, here we go. So again, and some of these people are turning up with corporate machines, corporate issued machines, which is even worse. It's one thing if it's your own, but yeah. There was one particular gentleman who was transferring a lot of financial documents in the clear, and it got to the point where we'd seen so many that we felt we needed to give him a hand. Now, he insisted that he had a VPN. He was absolutely insistent that we couldn't have seen anything. And it was only after we told him we knew which mortgage provider he was using and exactly how much he had left on his mortgage that he finally accepted something was wrong. And yes, his VPN was on, yes, it was connected, and yes, it was completely misconfigured. So if any of you have heard of split tunneling, that controls what traffic goes over the VPN. And most of his traffic wasn't going over the VPN, so we're able to help him. We saw her on one particular day, our own infrastructure, trying to communicate with what we believed was a malicious IP out of South America. And for a good few minutes, we were quite worried. Turns out it was an infrastructure hacking class where the trainer had spoofed a whole bunch of IP ranges. So it wasn't South America at all. It was 3 rooms down the corridor. Few, right? Absolute few. I mean, I can't tell you. We were confused and worried in equal amounts. It probably doesn't surprise you by now, listening to the stories, that we see so much malware, so many different types of malware. Because we can do that full capture of all the packets on the network, we can reconstruct files, we can reconstruct emails, images, web pages, anything that comes over the wire, we can reconstruct. So sometimes we get some of these malware samples and we put them in a sandbox, like a safe place where you can execute it and just observe it and see what happens. There's one particular piece of malware which was amazing. It did all of these things. Started off with sending out spam emails. At the same time, I don't know what it thought, what kind of resources the machine it thought it landed on, but at the same time, it started crypto mining, gave up with crypto mining, did this weird thing where it tried to connect to well over 10,000 different hosts, totally random IP addresses. We couldn't work out a pattern. Then it started to try and steal the credentials off the machine it had landed on, and for its final dance, just common or garden ransomware. I'm done now. I'll just encrypt all the data on the disk. Well done to you, sir or madam. I mean, good effort, good effort. Not particularly, not particularly conspicuous, right? It's going to alert many AVs and EDRs. And then you have the people who want to try out their new skills. They've just learned them. They've just been in these training classes. Maybe they've been in a web application fuzzing or penetration type class. And yeah, let's do SQL injection on the internet. All of the internet. So one particular incident started off with what looked like a random collection of websites they were trying to do these injection attacks on. Then it moved to be more specific. It was one after one restaurant chains. I have no idea what this person had, what beef they had with restaurant chains. But and then finally they pivoted and started looking at some payment providers. And at that point, I mean, we were already considering like tapping this person on the shoulder. But when they went to the payment providers, that was like, yeah, we really need to have a word with this person. Which again, we can do. We can triangulate with access points. We know if you're in a training room, all these things. And I think what we find is we can also do this where for an individual user, stroke MAC address, we can serve a captive portal page, which says, hey, basically, here's your MAC address. Here's what you're trying to get to. We can see you. After we serve these pages, we generally don't see any more activity from them. You know, I guess most of them just don't think they're being watched. When they find out they're being watched, they're like, oh yeah, better stop then. There was a previous version of this which just said, doing illegal things is still illegal at Black Hat. It was a lot more curt, it was a lot more terse. Yeah. But hopefully what you've seen and what the Black Hat management team have had this ethos from the very start, which is trying to make people more secure than when they arrived. So if they do have any of these issues, like a misconfigured VPN, or like them turning up on the network, the machine is already compromised maybe, or even just has a bit of spyware on, and we can help them, remove that or configure it properly or educate them or whatever it might be, that's kind of a net win, as well as trying to stop people doing illegal stuff. That would also be awesome too. So there you go. That is the end of the talk for now. I'll put my website up there mainly because I put a blog post on yesterday which has further reading stuff. So if you are interested, hollandj.uk. I've written personally myself, I've written a couple of blog posts about the automation of the infrastructure build and the automation around the SOC and the response to incidents. There's also a 40-minute extended version of something like this by one of the Black Hat management crew, a guy called Grifter, which is really good. So if you have time to watch that on YouTube, I've linked to that. And also when we go and do the London event first week in December, we have a Twitch live stream as well. So there's a link to that too. So if you are interested, I've put all those links on the website and you can go and have a look. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I hope that was enjoyable.
Thank you, Jay. That was really good. Thanks for coming back.
You're welcome.
We love having you here. Okay, so super duper quick. We might skip a break. Do people want a break? You want a break or no break? Who wants a break? Oh, who doesn't want a break? Oh, you might just have to. I think you're all overruled there. The people who did want a break. We might just have to power on through. Has anyone got any questions for James? I know it's not over yet.
No, yeah, I'm
it's
happy
not
to.
over yet. Oh, okay, Dave. Let's go. I feel like Annika Rice. There you go.
Excellent talk. You lug the gear around across the world. Do you take the same stuff every time, and do you have to worry about persistent threats or people exploiting your hardware?
We use different, I can only talk for Palo, I guess, not for the other vendors, but we use different equipment each time. The logistics of getting stuff across borders and things like that, fortunately, Palo's big enough now to have stock of devices in most countries, particularly those with annoying customs and things like that to get through. So that's one thing. And yes, from a persistent threat point of view, absolutely. Again, we're lucky enough, I guess, from our point of view, that we have kind of hardened network appliances, management interfaces locked down on a management zone that no one else can get to. In fact, it's wired only, so we can't actually connect to it over the wireless. So every time someone turns up, when I get my team of 4 or 5 people without their Mac dongle for RJ45, which is a right pain in the you-know-where. So yeah, we do use different gear every time. Firewalls are very hard to compromise most of the time, so we don't believe we have a problem there. But the rest of the stuff, the rest of the gear, I mean, those nooks that you saw in one of the GIFs, they run like the registration service, you know, like where you go and show a QR code and get your badge printed. That's where the PII lives for the attendees and for us as staff. So that's the one thing we do guard really very much, instead of the rest of the time where we let people carry on and do their thing because they're demoing a new exploit or they're learning a new skill. We have to let that through. The firewall could and should block it in an enterprise network, not in this network. So we do protect that with our lives, and that's the thing that we definitely don't want any persistent threats. Well, any threats, to be honest. So yeah, good point there. Thank you.
Cheers.
Awesome, thank you. We've got some live stream questions.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Aaron. Are you going to read them out? Cool.
So from Mike Elsmore here, we've got, what is the funniest punishment you've wanted to do?
Funniest punishment I've wanted to do, yes. I guess the one that we actually did was someone was so persistent, they tried to avoid being blocked by changing their IP address manually, so avoiding DHCP. We still followed them because we can do it by MAC address. We suspected eventually they would change their MAC address because you can do that. Most people in security should probably know that by now. But we ended up following him around, and then he got so persistent that we just put quality of service limit on him. So we've actually got, in London, we have an 800 meg pipe, internet pipe, but this particular user was down to 0.05 megabits per second, which hopefully was so frustrating that they just gave up. So I think that's fair. If you're going to be that persistent, we're going to have to give you some annoyance.
Is that it? You all done?
There's one more from Mike. So there's no...
Oh God, Elsmore's having a field day today. He's not even in the country. Bloody hell. Okay, awesome, Indy. Coming over.
Hi. So
obviously you've got 2 days, a lot of pressure to get this set up, and it's great that you're using Ansible. But obviously, what do you do to avoid you making the mistake and misconfiguring some things? How do you stop that?
Best practices with security and stuff like that, always get into, well, it's probably the best practice with a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know if you do this in development or whatever other roles you guys do and girls in here, but 2 pairs of eyes on everything. The fact that we take the data straight from the Black Hat management team in the format they give it us and then run the automation that we've used many times before, we kind of feel like, I guess that's fairly rock solid now. The design of the network doesn't change much, so we can tend to reuse the same zone-based policies because the zone namings don't change. But yeah, it's all about 2 pairs of eyes. When we want to make a change on any of our network equipment, we can't make it. We queue it up, and then we have to have one of the management team from Black Hat come and look at it before we actually apply the change. So it's quite a strict change control process, which ordinarily would be a pain in the you-know-where for most enterprises. No one likes change control, but it's very much needed here. There have been instances, there was a vendor that's now not involved anymore with Black Hat where something happened because due diligence wasn't done and it didn't end well. So yeah, hope that answers the question.
Awesome, thank you. Are we going to take another question? We are going to skip a break, guys. So if you want to run out, if you want to get a drink.
How many random what?
ESP-esque.
ESPS?
I don't know what it means either, if it helps.
No, I don't know either. I mean, we do have a bunch of random devices. Like if you're in the conference itself, there's a general Wi-Fi that's like the SSID and the password is posted up everywhere. So on that particular SSID and that particular network, we see all sorts of stuff. People will connect to literally everything. That's where the Steam Decks were, for example.
Oh, ESP micro devices, he's clarified.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that was probably one of them on the screen, that he's picked something that's totally random that I have no idea what it is. Well played, Mike, well played, sir. But we do have a whole bunch of random stuff. And then we have random other stuff because there's people there doing streaming, for example. There's press briefings, so people will be streaming interviews to streaming platforms, Twitch, YouTube, etc. So we see all sorts of weird and wonderful AV gear that's connected to the network. And then we see all sorts of occasionally we've seen some building management stuff connect to our network. It shouldn't be. That should be on the infrastructure's network. But someone's seen the network posted on the wall and said, "Oh, we'll just connect it to that network. That'll be fine." And so you see random stuff. Absolutely. It's definitely not your average enterprise network. It's a real keeps you on your toes network.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you, James. Lovely. That was brilliant. Okay, so sorry for skipping the break. Time-wise, obviously, conscious of people getting trains and everything else. So we are going to jump straight to our next speaker. Before I do that, I just need to pop this back on the screen for a second, and I will tell you why. Bear with. How do I put this back in the? Oh, here we go. It's just a hole. Just got to put it back in the hole. Okay. So this is our competition, which has been run by Infobip. So it's like a fun little chat bot. You can win some really cool prizes. I will show you the prizes because I need everyone to get onto it immediately because we need Infobip to sponsor us next year. Otherwise, there will not be a free bar. Okay. Here we have some lovely orange Infobip socks. Prize number 1. Woohoo! Orange socks. Prize number 2, we have a wonderful 100% cotton Infobip branded t-shirt. Prize number 2. Did I say prize number 2? Okay, prize number 3, the mega prize, is the Lego Advent Christmas calendar. It's amazing. Everyone, you're going to want one. It's December next week. So can you please jump on, have a little play around with that bot. Mike Elsmore's also watching, so done that for you, Mike. Beata's here as well. So Fusion's a great meetup. It's the place to be. Okay, cool. So I am going to jump on to our next speaker. That's Emily. Okay. Brilliant. So this is our spotlight section. So over the last few months, I've had the pleasure of working really, really closely with the Black Tech in Brum group. Carla, who's not here tonight, she has done incredible things for that community, along with others who have supported her. They won awards. They had an acknowledgement at the Birmingham Tech Week. I think it's called Tech WM now, or whatever it's called. So it's just incredible, and it's going from strength to strength. So Leanna is here to give us a little run through in terms of what the Black Tech in Brum group are doing. So can we have a massive round of applause, please?
Thank you, Hannah. You basically done it for me, so I can go now. Evening, everyone. As Hannah said, I'm Leanna, and I'm here on behalf of Carla, just to tell you guys a bit about Black Tech in Brum. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've got to do two things, multitasking. I'm as bad as you for this. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a bit about why Carla actually set Black Tech in Brum up. And it was sadly due to a lot of frustrations, whether that was the lack of visibility in the tech space, the lack of recognition, and lack of resources, and the extreme lack of diversity in the industry. So Carla basically wanted to set up a community that was going to inspire, empower, and champion Black talent in Birmingham, and to obviously make the tech space more diverse and inclusive. Sorry, I'm going to have to run with the ticker. It's here. Yeah, it's working.
Sorry.
I just can't hold two things at once. So, yes, so our achievements so far, oh God. So it's been pretty short, in a short space of time. The first meetup was in June, and we have over 200 members engaged in our WhatsApp group. We've had our first member have their internship gained through Black Tech in Brum. And as Hannah mentioned earlier, Carla got highly recommended in the Diversity Champion Award at the Tech West Midlands. So, like I said, it's the momentum that's been built up from it just this year has been absolutely amazing. I've known Carla for a while now, and I know that she wanted to share how I came about Black Tech in Brums, because I didn't know about it myself. But I've known Carla. We met at the Steam House Incubator in Millennium Point, if anyone's familiar with that. And I happened to move over to the new Steam House, so me and Carla didn't always cross paths as much as we did before. But one day we happened to bump into each other at Millennium Point, and she was actually going through one of the frustrations, which was finding a space to hold the next meetup. And then she was telling me about Black Tech in Brum, and I was like, I want to get involved. So I'm all about giving opportunities and trying to help and connect and collaborate. So I was like, we need to find a venue. So I was like, we was working together to try and find that. And we did. We ended up getting the space at the new Steam House, which was great because we was able to hold another meetup. And then I joined the committee team, and it's just been a pleasure and an honor to be a part of, because I also have a business of my own, which is a fashion, beauty and lifestyle magazine called Fro. And just for me to have access and to be able to seek advice within the community and also give opportunities is it's been absolutely amazing. So I'll move on to the next slide. Yes, so just to let you know a bit about what we'll be doing in 2024. Can't believe it's going to be that either. It's gone so fast this year. But yeah, lots of plans, lots of in real life meetups as we're going to continue to do. But also one thing that Carla is keen to do is provide co-working space for members within the industry. So, there's ways that you can support us, which I'll move on to in a second, but also to provide opportunities within the community as well. So that's a lot of the focus next year for us, but I'll move on to the next one. So this is where I come with the support that we need. So I'll be joining where Hannah was saying that you want to get the sponsor for Infobit. Well, we want to get some sponsors as well, and any help and support that connections that you can bring to Black Tech in Brum will be greatly appreciated, because it's all about being able to be a part of the industry and make it more diverse and inclusive. And we're also looking for sponsorship, so if anyone's able to help in those areas, we'll be grateful. But also co-working space, if you know of any venues that will be willing to offer that, or even if it's to provide support where it comes to hospitality. It's been doing very well in this room for that, but it would be something that would be grateful. So yeah, so on the next slide we have a QR code where you can give a bit of a scan and get to know us a little bit more, and yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Leanna. That was so good. Has anyone got any questions? As you all know, diversity is so important in the tech community, which is why we're doing the spotlight section tonight. So if anyone has any questions, want to get involved in Black Tech in Brum, they've got a page on LinkedIn. Obviously, use the QR code. So before we go on to our next speaker, I'm going to run just a quick message. So this is another one of the meetups that we've been working really, really closely with recently, who have done incredible things the last few months, and their meetups are great. They're inclusive, they're fun, they're creative. You only have to go onto their meetup page and just see all the stuff that they've done. So we're hearing from Emily from Women in Tech Birmingham. Emily's here tonight. She's here. So if you've got any questions, Emily is at the back, so feel free to grab her afterwards. But this is just a short intro from Emily. I hope the audio works. Will you tell me if it doesn't, James?
I'm Emily from Women in Tech Birmingham. We are a meetup group that supports, empowers, and promotes women and non-binary people in tech. We have over 1,500 members, with 600 who joined us this year alone. So we seem to be in a growing phase. This year we've run monthly events with a series of different events. So we've had workshops, talks, socials, networking, and we've had about 200 attendees across our events this year. We are a supportive and welcoming community. We have regulars and newcomers at each event. And next year we have a fantastic range of events, ranging from an event around interview techniques for people wanting to interview in tech, combating imposter syndrome, so that might be a workshop. And we even want to do our recurring Women That Inspired Us event for International Women's Day in March. So yeah, we have lots and lots of ideas, and we are on the hunt for friendly venues as well, if you have any tips. So you can attend our events via Meetup, so just on the Meetup page. You can also sign up to our monthly newsletter, which has lots of really good content. So it has interviews from members, relevant articles, tips, and advice that we've got from our members during our events that we just ran. And you can also follow us on socials. So LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, I think that's all we have. Yeah. And yeah, so if you want to join us or support us, you can support us by, for instance, spreading the word to anyone who might be interested in our events, so have more attendees. You can follow us on socials. You can subscribe to the newsletter. But also, we're quite friendly ourselves. So if you want to work with us, if you have any tips on venues, or if you have any event ideas, please do come talk to us. We're pretty open and easy to talk to in theory. So yeah, thank you.
Basically, so the main gist of that is the importance of our tech community, how diverse it really, really is, the different amazing groups that are out there. Everyone's asking for sponsorship. Everyone's asking for spaces to hold their events. I'm sorry to be the preacher. I will get off the stage in a second. But if you want to keep things going, if you want to tap into those communities, support them, speak to your employers, speak to managers, do it yourselves, whatever it may be, because honestly, it doesn't happen without you. So I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to Leanna and also to Emily tonight for allowing, for coming and joining in, I suppose, the fusion fun and jumping in the spotlight spot. So massive round of applause. Okay, so I'm going to get off the stage, which I'm sure you're all really happy about. I'm going to hand over to our final speaker, Andrew Fitzpatrick, who is staff engineer at Travel Perk.
Oh, sorry. Good. The first thing I was going to do was a sound check to make sure I could hear myself, and I know I can. There we go. Excellent. So I'm the only person now keeping you all from the pub, aren't I? Tough job. Okay, so welcome to this talk. I've been a staff engineer at Travel Perk for 12 months. Name on here is Andrew Fitzpatrick. That's how you'll find me on LinkedIn, but that's actually my pre-married name. So if you also look for Andrew Worden Fitzpatrick, that's in most places where you'll find me. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I work at Travel Perk as a staff software engineer. Travel Perk is a SaaS company offering business-to-business travel management. That means that our clients can book their trains, flights, hotels, car hire through our platform. Companies use the likes of Travel Perk for things like policy and compliance, the inventory offering we have, centralized reporting and billing, and also as an insurance policy, because the last thing you want to do is turn up at a hotel at 11 o'clock at night and find they've run out of rooms. Like, if you sort it out yourself, who are you going to call then? In January 2022, our Series D funding gave the company a valuation of 1.3 billion. So it's actually a tech unicorn, and it's a tech unicorn with offices right here in Birmingham. Many people don't know that. So I've worked at Travel Perk for 9 years, but 7 of which were at Click Travel. I'll talk a little bit more about the acquisition later, but it puts me in a strange position where I'm one of the people that have worked for Travel Perk longer than Travel Perks existed. So yeah, it is always quite funny when you get the little reminder popping up on the HR system. You've worked here 9 years. And you think, yeah, it's only been around 8.5. I've lived in Birmingham for 18 years as well. Started in Harborne, moved to Kings Norton, Nappy Valley, had kids. And also I'm big into food, so I was really happy when I saw Habaneros were catering here, because every time I walk through the Great Western Arcade, there's just a massive queue. And I thought I'd be able to skip the queue tonight, but no, I was queuing from the bar to get my burrito. So yeah, I was really happy about that. Before we go off talking too much about career ladders and levels, etc., just by way of indication, can people kind of give me a rough idea of what level they're at the moment? So I'll call out some levels, so put your hand up. So have we got any entry-level engineers in the audience? A couple, yeah. Okay, any mid-level engineers? Ooh. Senior engineers? Loads of senior engineers. Okay, staff engineers? One at back. Principal or distinguished engineers? None of those. Okay, so the audience is mostly senior engineers, and you'll all be looking at this thinking, that's the next level. Okay, so we've all got different paths we've followed to get to where we are in our careers at the moment. I'll talk about the typical kind of software engineering path. This is the one that if you look on Gergie's website and the staff engineering book by Will Larson, you'll kind of find this kind of path defined, but it is very typical. So we all start in the industry as entry-level engineers, fresh off a boot camp, fresh out of university, or as a career change type path. Typically, engineers at this level have 0 years of project experience, and they're learning the way. After a little while, we progress to engineer. This is where we're starting to own pieces of work, we're becoming competent, working on our own, and typically engineers at this level have 1 or more years experience. After this, we become senior engineers. So this is where our domain level knowledge is growing, our technology level knowledge is growing. We're starting to own bigger pieces of work. Typically, this transition happens like 3+ years, depending on the type of work you're doing and the type of work the company does. I would say it's very typical to find that for this progression to happen at about 5 years, but it's not unusual to find senior engineers that have got 20+ years experience. But why is that? So traditionally, there used to be a point in the career ladder of individuals where the only path past senior engineer was the management track. So that was taking on team management, people management, that kind of thing. So you could stay at the level you're at, which is absolutely fine. It's a valid career choice. You could become a tech lead, responsible for project delivery, owning technical direction, and being a tech or domain expert. Tech leads also tend to be squad leads. They are responsible for ceremonies like stand-ups or retros. You could become an engineering manager. Again, responsible for project delivery, owning technical direction, and people management. The big difference really between tech lead and engineering manager on the management track is the number of people they serve. So an engineering manager typically serves a lot more people. So both tech lead in this instance and engineering manager follow the management path rather than the IC path. So as they progress, they'll tend more towards people management, team management, project management, and away from actual individual contribution, which is hands-on coding daily. In recent years, though, the concept of a staff engineer has come about. I think it maybe started with like one of the big tech companies, but it was like really started to gain pace in the last 3 or 4 years. So let's have a little bit more a look at this. So the management track versus the staff plus IC track. So the roles and progression on the management track are actually really well established, and they're very similar between companies. You can change as a software engineering manager in one company to another company. The role and responsibilities will be very similar. I mean, just search any online bookseller for management and you'll see how many books there are dedicated to giving advice in this area. We can liken this path a little bit to the yellow brick road. So it's a very well-defined path. I mean, it's not easy to follow. There's watch out for those flying monkeys, but it is there and you can absolutely follow that path very easily. Staff Plus, on the other hand, is a little bit more like an overgrown track. You can kind of see roughly where people have been before, but you don't know if you're going in the right direction or not. It's not very well trodden. Now, there's lots of prominent bloggers and authors that are trying to bring a bit more consistency to this kind of path and this kind of role by writing about their experiences in the past. But it's still a very immature path to follow. Sorry. It's just telling me I've got to go and put my kids to bed. So how did I get to become a staff software engineer? Well, I followed the very typical career as a software engineer. I started at BT as a junior software engineer. I came from a very normal background. Like my school was a bit like Grange Hill for those who are old enough to remember. But I started at BT. I was actually working in the artificial intelligence research labs back in 2003. So I was surrounded by really clever people doing really interesting work. But I was down in Ipswich, and my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she lived in Birmingham. So I thought, I'll move to Birmingham. Found a job at Capgemini. Worked for Capgemini for about 10 years. And over those 10 years, I did about 10, 11 different projects, ranging from 4 weeks to kind of 3 years a project. In that time at Capgemini, though, I always stayed technical. So whereas a lot of my peers on the graduate scheme became business analysts, they became salespeople or account managers, I fit into a niche where I was technical. You know, I could run a requirements workshop in the morning and then in the afternoon go and actually work on the product. And the technologies I worked with there, I was always a Java developer, the technologies I worked with there were like FileNet, Documentum, and Palantir. And they all have plugin frameworks where you can expand them in Java and then take it back to the business the next day and go, look at this wonderful thing. And they go, yeah, that's great, that's what we want. So within 10 years at Capgemini, I only actually worked in Birmingham for 3 months. So my grand move to come to Birmingham meant that I actually worked in London for about 7 years, Worthing, Leeds, basically anywhere that wasn't Birmingham. So then I looked to actually move to Birmingham and I found Click Travel. Now, Click Travel in 2015 were a company that were absolutely at the bleeding edge of cloud technologies. I mean, AWS announced Lambdas in 2015 and they went into beta and we were starting to write production code and deploy them and run them as they were being announced as betas. So it was a very attractive company to join and heavy use of AWS. During my time at Click Travel, I became a technology lead, team lead, but I was still working as an individual contributor. Then in 2021, the TravelPerk acquisition happened. And in terms of, I mean, I've heard horror stories about acquisitions, but honestly, there's not a better company than TravelPerk to have acquired Click. The culture, the mindset, the mentality was absolutely brilliant and exactly the same. TravelPerk also acquired a few other companies, and with that, the engineering team kind of grew 4 times bigger. And they went through an exercise of leveling the engineers so that we could all be kind of calibrated and reviewed at the same level. And as part of this process, the staff principal and distinguished levels kind of came about, and I was one of the staff engineers. So that was 12 months ago. And 12 months ago, there were 10 staff engineers. There were 7 in the Foundations tribe, and this tribe is responsible for DevOps processes, for front-end technology choices, back-end technology choices, that kind of thing. There were 2 in the mobile tribe who were responsible for our mobile app offering. And then there was 1 in the product tribe, and that was me. But me being in a product tribe was seen as actually being very beneficial because I was close to other engineers and other engineers that were working on the product. So over time, that was seen, like I said, it's seen as a good thing. So we had a change where now at the end of 23, we've got 2 more staff engineers because 2 got promoted. The Foundations tribe has shrunk, and those engineers that have been removed from Foundations tribe are now in some of the product tribes. And this means that every product tribe within TravelPerk now has access to a staff engineer. And this just helps with communication more than anything, because teams get siloed, whereas when there's a staff plus group and we talk to each other, and it kind of just makes it easier to feed things up and down and find out the pain points within the organization. So what have the last 12 months been like? Well, initially, first 3 months, nothing really changed. I was a staff engineer performing as a senior engineer. I've still been an individual contributor to a squad. And then towards the end of the first 3 months, the pay tribe formed. So this was taking like finance-related squads from within the department and actually forming them together into one tribe. And at this point in time, my manager said to me, you're the staff engineer, we think you should work at the tribe level. So I said, great, okay. Because that kind of reflected my sphere of influence. Then the next 3 to 6 months were honestly the hardest time I had, probably as a staff engineer and maybe in my career. So I kicked off and started to coordinate an initiative called the Finance Architecture Review. So this involved bringing together a number of senior engineers from across the tribe to investigate our platform, identify where we've got issues, and coordinate work streams so that we could deep dive on those issues. While I was doing this, I was trying to continue to be an IC. So I was still picking up JIRAs, I was still performing pull request reviews, and I was still rotated on as a firefighter. And at the same time, I thought my position of working within a tribe and my promotion to being a staff engineer just meant I had to be over everything. I had to be involved with all projects that were running within the tribe. I had to be aware of what every engineer was doing, and just in case they needed my input. But I mean, this just wasn't sustainable. I was trying to do too much, and I wasn't focusing on the thing that I should have been focusing on, which was the Big Rock initiative, which was far. I felt overwhelmed, actually, and really far removed from what I was comfortable doing. And as Amber said before about imposter syndrome, that really started to kick in. And so I actually started talking to my manager about being reverted back to a senior engineer. Luckily though, my manager was incredibly supportive, and they helped me to shape an expectation of what the staff role actually looked like within the tribe. This helped me to understand what I needed to do in terms of their expectations, what I needed to do in terms of the needs of the tribe, and also what I needed to do for my own progression in my own career. So I had some good strategic goals to work towards. So then the next 3 months, so I continued my architecture work, ran loads more workshops, performed lots more code analysis to discover where we've got problems within our platform, trying to plan out how we would solve those problems, writing design proposals, etc. I even got to write a new service and using Lambdas and implemented a number of endpoints for it. So this is actually really, from the previous 3 months, which were like the dark days, these were wonderful 3 months. And then in the last 3 months, I've been coordinating an initiative to identify kind of error paths within our code where they kind of start at one part of the platform and impact another part of the platform. And they're the kind of things that are small but really annoying, but you never get around to because it's not in your ownership. I've also run a dream architecture workshop with 7 people in real life in Barcelona at our head office. So this took 1.5 days. We ran it as a Disney ideation kind of process. And had a brown paper process mapping exercise at the end to do the critic stage and really test our designs and what we wanted to achieve. In the last 2 weeks has been planning season, and literally every time I get my plan done, I think, yes, that's it. Someone else comes to me and goes, Andrew, what about this thing for next year? So we've had security, we've had business level inputs, we've had finance team inputs, and then you have to move things around again. But that's almost over now, which is good. We've also got a new additions to our tribe. We've got the expenses team. They've joined, and the payments squad have split in two to better concentrate on what they work on. And also within the business in the last kind of 2 months, we've kicked off a Staff Plus forum. So all the Staff Plus engineers get together to discuss things about the platform. But it's been really positive because it's meant that we've been able to talk and communicate as a group of people, whereas I think we were starting to get siloed information because we didn't have this open space to talk. So I've talked about what I've done over the last 12 months, but what I want to talk about is how I kind of prioritize now what I work on. So I said I was getting overwhelmed, I was trying to do too much. And partway through the last 12 months, I attended a lead dev workshop about prioritizing tasks. And one of the strategies mentioned there was about using rocks, pebbles, and sand. So everybody imagine you've got a jar that's got a capacity. It's a glass jar, so it's got a fixed capacity. You need to fill that jar with rocks, pebbles, and sand. So we start with the rocks. They're the big things. So you need to have some rocks in your jar. They're the really big things you need to focus on. Then around the rocks, you can fit some pebbles. And then finally, you can fill in the gaps with sand. If you start filling your jar with sand, then you'll never get any rocks in there. And rocks are the things that make real big business impact. The size of these things is kind of relative to your level as well. So for instance, sand for a senior engineer might be a pebble for a mid-level engineer. For a staff engineer, rocks tend to be kind of cross-squad initiatives. They're multi-month initiatives. It's the creation of new services. It's that kind of level of work. Pebbles are single squad initiatives. They're design documents, supplier comparisons, large scale refactors. And we're not performing them ourselves. We're kind of coordinating those, which is good. And then the sand is PR reviews, answering questions, etc. So by using this approach, I've been able to concentrate on my rocks and be able to prioritize people's asks when they come to me as well, because I can think, well, are they asking me about a rock, a pebble, or a sand? If they're asking me to do a rock, is there a rock I can take out of my jar to put their rock in? If the answer is no, then I need to defer or delegate this thing rather than trying to pick up what they're asking me to do. So one thing that fits with this is how do we understand what our rocks are and our sand is and our pebble? So the first thing you need to do is really understand business context. I mean, this is an absolute must. And the way to do that is just understand how your employer makes money. So that's how we prioritize our rocks. We need to understand the impact they'll have to the business. It's very easy to articulate the technical benefits of a certain piece of work or a certain refactor, but it's very difficult to put it in terms of, and it will benefit the business by this. So to kind of get that context, I'd say attend business review sessions, read business performance emails, attend quarterly review sessions, kind of take note of upcoming business priorities, and then try to really work out how the rocks that you're prioritizing will contribute to those. So arrange catch-up sessions with the team. This enables you to find out some of the problems that are going on with the team, and not just with one squad, but maybe multiple squads, and then you can bring people together to solve it in a common way, rather than having different squads solve the same thing in different ways, because again, that's not sustainable either. So what I do there is I have a catch up every 3 weeks with the engineering managers in the squad, just to talk about the projects they're working on, if they need any input, any help with any of them, and just to get a general catch up. This is much better than me trying to follow every single Slack channel for every single project that's running. And I'm also setting up a forum with the L6 engineers, so these are the senior engineers within our tribe, where we can discuss more technical things like which Pythonic conventions should we follow, etc. And then we can agree on those, roll them out across the tribe, and that brings consistency. Consistency means it's easier to have code ownership, it means it's easier to solve bugs, and it just makes life easier all around. And the final thing is just to say hello to people. So within Travel Perk, we have a big builders conference every year. And the big difference for me from this year to the last 2 years is just the number of people I've spoken to and said hello to. I purposefully sought out all the other staff engineers to say hello to them, and then other key people from around the business. And it makes it much easier when you then have to communicate with them over Slack or Zoom to, you've got a bit of a personal rapport. And you've already had that, oh, you look taller, shorter than you look on Zoom kind of conversation as well. Good sources of information. The Will Larson book I mentioned, I missed it off here actually. But the Tanya Riley book on the staff engineer's path is very good. I've just started reading that. And so far it's been good. The RANS leadership Slack. If no one's heard of this, I'd say definitely sign up for this. It's not just good for staff, it's good for leadership in general. It's a really safe forum to ask questions. In the staff channels, a number of times people have said, I'm a staff engineer, what do I do? It's quite comical because we all have the same, like, what do we do now type thing. But the leadership Slack covers everything. There's got technology channels, there's regional channels, etc. Lead dev talks, they're very good. There's Gergi's pragmatic engineer mailing list. That's also very good to read. He's an engineer that was with Uber and Skyscanner, and he's got lots of experience in the tech industry and lots of good contacts. So he puts out a mailing list every week. And there's always really good articles in there. And the same with Pat Kua, his Level Up mailing list. It's not specific for software engineering or development. It's more kind of management and progression in general, but that's also really valuable to read. And the final thing, so I'm aware that I am keeping everyone from the pub, is just to say that, Travel Perk, as I said, it's a unicorn. It's got an office in Birmingham, and we are currently hiring senior engineers in Birmingham at the moment. So if you'd like to take the QR code, have a look what jobs are available, and please do. And that's me. I just want to say thank you, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing it on purpose now, Vickery, yeah? Yes, you see the time. Stop!
Let's go.
Oh, gosh. Okay, thank you, Andrew. That was a great talk.
Okay.
Has anyone got any questions? Or on the live stream? No questions? Okay, no? No questions. Okay, well, the QR code there is for the roles available at Travel Perk. So thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us tonight. Thank you. Okay, so now it's time for my talk. I'm only joking. I'm only joking. I am going to put something else on screen though, so you're not free just yet. Bear with me, you know how long it takes me to sort the tech out. Okay, so first of all, massive thank you our amazing speakers tonight. It's been great. Thank you. I need to say thank you to the team. The Fusion team are freaking awesome. And you, Elsmore, on the live stream. Thank you for making all the live stream, remote talks and everything else happen. So hopefully the people at home have enjoyed watching. We have had donations tonight. Oh no! So good! And like, I'm pretty sure that slide was only there for like 20 seconds. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to milk it a little bit more. So I'm going to pop it up there again. Now, this is obviously straight to our donation page. This is something that's going to be running for a while. We're not just doing the mental health run. This is going to be like a continuous thing, the support between us and Birmingham Mind. If anyone would like to run with me in the rain or snow on the 3rd of Birmingham in Cannon Hill Park, will you please let me know? And if not, if you come into the pub, I will find you. I'll buy you a drink and then I will make you run with me on the 3rd of December. But in all seriousness, please do get in touch if you want to join us. I think we've got there's like 6-7 of us at the moment, which is a really good number. Families are welcome, dogs are welcome, whatever, just please come along. So on that final note, thank you so much for coming tonight, the last one of 2023. Thank you for all the support this year. We hope that you've had a great evening. And we're all heading to the pub. So if you fancy it, we're going to Cozy Club. If you don't know where it is, there's always someone in the room that does know where it is. And hopefully we'll see you all next year. Thank you. Am I on? I'm quick. I don't know which mic it is. It's this one. Info bit raffle. I'm so sorry. So we're gonna. I was just like, let's get to the pub. I don't even know if is the stream still going? Oh, okay, right. Well, they can join in too. Okay, so raffle. So let's quickly bash these ones out. So should we do orange socks? Jazzy orange socks first. Here we go. I'm going to hand over to B because I'm not going to do it.
Okay, winner is informed for the socks. It's Gaston. Oh, and if I'm butchering it, sorry. English is not my native language. Gaston Michel. Yeah! Congrats. Okay, let's see for the t-shirt. Kate Madden. Woo! And the big one for today, it's Ellie Kagate, is it? Yeah? Yay! Ali. Woo! Congrats and thank you for participating.
Time for the pub. Go.